He'll come back, they'll be like, what did you learn? What did you learn from your trip on ayahuasca? He'd be like, you know, you're not even going to believe this, but I figured out that Dillon Danis is actually one of the closest friends I've ever had. And look at what he did. He took this little paycheck, let me beat him up, turned me into a hero for my fiance, and then I got to cash a check that was probably around 35 times bigger than his. All right, so the numbers came out from Misfits. I told you guys yesterday, I was like, I'm done with this topic. I have just done nothing but Logan Paul and Dillon Danis for like the last two, I don't even know how long. Long time. It was the biggest thing going on. And I was like, I'm done with it. And then the numbers came out today. And I'm like, oh my God. Oh my God. The numbers came out, and it's notable for a multitude of reasons, right? Number one is about how well the pay-per-view did. And then subsequent to that, how well Dillon did pay-wise in comparison to how the pay-per-view did and what his contribution to that was. Because listen, okay, I just want to make this perfectly clear in terms of who's winning, who's losing, etc. While it might have seemed as though Dillon won throughout this whole thing, at the end of the day, there is no way to say that Dillon won. Logan won in every single category that actually matters at this point, except for one, which is that Dillon built his profile up to oblivion from now, right? I mean, I'm sorry, from before, right? His profile is enormous. I think that's all he really cares about. But when it comes to what actually matters to most people who are measuring this stuff, as an example, success, who won, and how much money you made, oh my God, okay? Misfits got the best deal of all time on Dillon Danis. I'm going to go through the numbers with you guys, and we're going to talk about it because it is shocking. Shocking. I think Dillon may have gotten the worst compensation in relation to his value in the history of combat sports. So that's what we're going to do. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. And how about you do me a little solid and throw a like on this video also, because it helps me immensely. And I'm asking you, not that person or that person. I'm asking you if you could just click like. It'll take you 1 second. I would appreciate it. That's what we're going to do. Also, I'm going to talk about I'm going to talk a little bit about UFC 294. I got to ease back into UFC. You know what I mean? I feel like I've been talking about this event forever, but that's just what we do. Listen, like, if people, like, I got a couple messages from people. They're all, come on, man, you got to get back to UFC. And I'm like, okay, do you think that I choose what topics I'm doing? Like, you really think that's how this works? I don't choose. You guys choose. It's as simple as that. This is the definition of a democracy. If I do a video about one topic and it gets 125,000 views, and I do one about a separate topic and it gets 25,000 views, I'm doing them on the thing that got 125,000 views. It's just like, that's just what it is. You guys tell me what you want me to talk about, and I do it. You know what I mean? And I will say this. When I get my arms around a specific topic that is doing well and become like a thought leader, I will strangle that thing to death. And I think this is the end. I think that this is going to be me wringing the last bit of interest out of this topic. But this is a big one because this is the cherry on top of the entire event. How much money did it make? Who really won? Because Logan won. Like, this is the bottom line. Dude. There's just no other way to put it. So that's what we're going to talk about. Well, actually, we talk a little bit about Jake Paul's upcoming event too. But yeah, if I remember, but I might not. Anyway, so let's jump into it. All right, so let's do this. Let's start with how much did this, let me see. Actually, I don't remember which one I put first. Looks like we started on the biggest pay-per-views in UFC history. Now, why are we comparing it to UFC? Because it's its own category, right? Like, boxing is this weird enigma in terms of like how much things generate. Bottom line, boxing as of now, barring a very select few of fights between professional boxers, is a lower draw than UFC. Let's not get into the weeds. Okay, guys, just relax. If that's not correct, it's irrelevant. Let's just compare it or get like a feeling for the biggest selling UFC pay-per-views of all time. That is what this list is, and I want you to let this marinate into your brain. Okay, and there's a reason why I am doing this first before I reveal how many pay-per-views this particular event between Dillon Danis, Logan Paul, KSI, and on a lower level, KSI and Tommy Fury did. You think bottom line, every person that was going to buy the pay-per-view because of Tommy Fury, KSI, for sure was going to buy it as a result of Dillon Danis and Logan Paul. Okay, so that's why, like, when you're really assessing the value here, it's important to note the following. That Tommy Fury and KSI, let's say they generated this much, okay? The question is, which of those two fights generated a bigger number? And the one that the other guys generated, would those have been purchased because of the other fight anyway? So like, are there anyone who bought this fight because of KSI and Tommy Fury that would not have bought it because of Logan Paul and Dillon Danis? The answer is, of course not. And whatever this enormous number is that bought it because of Logan Paul and Dillon Danis, probably 80% would not have bought it the other way. So Logan and Dillon are the result. This is why that happened. I just want to get that out of the way as we get into the numbers and then talk about Dillon Danis' contribution to that and then what he is going to get compensated in comparison to other people. What? All right. So the biggest pay-per-view in the history of the UFC, $2.4 million for McGregor and Nurmagomedov. You are never going to see a better setup for a fight than that ever, right? Now, you had similar conflict to these two guys, right? Like, I mean, that was that personal, right? Similar to Dillon and Logan. However, you also have the two best fighters in the world, the two biggest stars in the world, fighting for religion, fighting for culture, fighting for everything, right? 2.4. Okay. McGregor versus Poirier 2. Okay. That's the rematch after Conor came back, lost, and is coming back. Okay. McGregor versus Diaz. Okay. So by the way, that's 1.6 and 1.6. McGregor versus Poirier 3. I'm sorry. McGregor versus Diaz 2. Obviously, you guys know what that is. In my opinion, probably the best MMA fight in history. I don't know. Close, right in the conversation. McGregor versus Poirier 3, which was the one in July when Conor came back and then he broke his leg. McGregor versus Cerrone. So all of these are McGregor, right? All of these are McGregor. He is literally in every single one of these, okay? The first one, the very first one of these that does not include McGregor is 1.3 million, and that's Kamaru Usman against Masvidal, and that's when Masvidal is at the absolute pinnacle of his popularity. The pinnacle of his popularity. And then you got McGregor versus Alvarez when McGregor is going for 2 belts. Okay. He's going up to 155 and he's fighting for 2 belts. That does 1.3. And then you got Brock Lesnar versus Frank Mir, 1.3. McGregor versus Aldo did 1.2. Okay. Lesnar versus Carwin, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So McGregor versus Aldo did 1.2. Ready for this? It did 1.3. This fight did 1.3 million. Okay? This fight did 1.3 million. This did equivalent numbers to McGregor versus Diaz 1, Usman versus Masvidal, McGregor versus Alvarez, Frank Mir versus Brock Lesnar, and did more than McGregor versus Aldo. Think about that for a second, okay? Now think about that for a second, and then now we're going to start talking about compensation, okay? Compensation, and I'm going to put it into extremely digestible terms so that everybody can really wrap their brain around the level with which Logan ultimately slid his penis directly into Dillon Danis' ass, okay? Slid it in. No lube. Nice and dry. Nice and raw, okay? And if you measure things the way that I do, right? Like, ultimately, that's how you measure who won, okay? Now, if Dillon would have starched Logan Paul, that's different, I mean, then he took everything from him, whatever, and then in the rematch he's gonna whatever. But outside of that, this is big boy shit, okay? This. Now, I'm not saying that Dillon didn't do tremendous damage to Logan Paul's whole deal over here, with Nina and all that. We can talk more about that later if the talk track goes there. But when you're talking about big boy stuff, right? Who really won? This is one of the most dry, deep dickings of all time, because let's think about how much money these guys made in these fights. Okay. So let's go back to this really quick. All right. So you guys remember this. So McGregor versus Diaz 2, right? How much did Nate Diaz make for that fight? Do you guys know? I do. 10 million. 10 million. And that is in addition to what Conor McGregor made, which is some ungodly amount that is significantly more than that. Okay? 10 million versus that. 8 figures is what Nate Diaz made as the B side of that fight. Okay. This one right here, McGregor versus Poirier 3, right? This one, Poirier made like 10 to 12 million. Jesse, how do you know that? I told you it's the coolest story ever how I know that, all right? Because I was at Kid Rock's house with the coolest friends I have, which is a group of Navy SEAL guys, which includes Rob O'Neill, who killed Bin Laden. He took me over to Kid Rock's house. I met Theo Vaughn. Theo had no idea who I was. And so he started talking inside baseball with me about UFC, because I was just talking about UFC, and he's best friends with Dustin Poirier. And I said something about Poirier's contract that was totally incorrect. He's all, no, that's not right. I'm like, yeah, it is, dude. He's like, no, it's not, dude. He's like one of my really good friends. I didn't even know that, right? And he's like, no. And so he educated me that the way that they structured Poirier's contract for this one, number 2, whoa, I just completely messed that, all right? This one, oh my God, what are we doing here? This one, oh, it's just not going to let me do, oh, I just realized why it's not letting me do that. I'm an idiot. Okay, for this one, okay, the way it was structured was they paid him a flat rate of like $750K, which I've heard is exactly what Kamaru Usman is making for this fight where he's coming in against Chimaev. And in the contract, they wrote a clause that said, if you win, then your rematch against Conor, you will get X. If you win by knockout, see, Theo said knockout. I bet you it's stoppage, but nonetheless, if you win by stoppage, then you get X. And it was it was like a $5 million base salary with back-end on the pay-per-view. Okay. So that's how I found that out, right? That's how I found that out. And so basically, if you think about how the UFC structured that contract, why were they giving Dustin Poirier that fight? Like why'd they choose Dustin Poirier for that fight? Okay, keep in mind, like they were. This is when Khabib just retired, and Conor's coming back. All they wanted was to give Conor McGregor a name that they could justify the title shot against Khabib, so that they could do Khabib against Conor 2. Because why? Because of this. People who are new to this channel may think that like this is a channel that thrives on like hating on people or something, and it's not, right? It's really not. I'll talk about that in a second, actually. But like, you will not find a word that I have ever said negative about Khabib. I have an enormous amount of respect for him. And I could see there, it's like, dude, you know how much gratitude he has to Dana? Dana made the life that he has now. You know what I mean? And so if Dana would have really pushed and Conor would have won that fight, they would have gone and done the fight again. Anyway, but then Conor got knocked out, so whatever. So the whole point I'm trying to make is that the Dustin Poirier contract was like, hey, if you do this thing that you're definitely not going to do, then we'll give you this huge contract. But they gave it to him. So he makes 10 to 12 million for that fight. Okay. Diaz makes 10 million for his rematch. Dillon, who was, what has to have been exclusively responsible for at least 700,000 of these buys. At least, dude. At least 700,000 buys. You know what I mean? Like, seriously. Because of what he did, because of what he turned this into, 1.3 million buys. This thing did the same numbers as those fights. Masvidal's title shot after he had just starched Darren Till, flying knee Askren, and then beat up Nate Diaz, and then he gets a title shot. Listen, let me take a step back. So some of you guys who may be watching this found my channel because you're a fan of like YouTube boxing, and maybe you don't understand UFC quite as well as a lot of our viewers here. So let me just put this in perspective. These are the biggest fights in UFC history, okay? And the thing that happened on Saturday is Dillon Danis against Logan Paul in boxing, and it did the same numbers. And the point I'm making is that is almost exclusively because of Dillon Danis, why it did such huge numbers. And there's no one with a brain who would deny that. No one. No one would deny that. And so since we know that Dillon got no points on the pay-per-view, which is understandable, he was in no position to negotiate that when he got this fight. He had just walked away from the KSI fight. He was in a position of need. He needed this fight. He had no leverage. Logan would have just went and fought somebody else if he negotiated too far. He had to take the terms that he took. So it is what it is, business. But then what he did is he created one of the biggest events in history. Dillon did that. Now, it came at the expense of Nina's feelings and, maybe a little bit of her reputation, but I would say candidly, the only reason that was the case is because she had maybe misrepresented herself a little bit to Logan. Now Logan seems not to care, and honestly, I watched that thing that I watched. Hang on, actually, let me finish this thought. So Dillon is probably, I don't know Dillon's payout, probably $1 million or maybe $500K, right? $500K to $1 million. There's no way they paid him more than $1 million. Okay. And he created one of the biggest pay-per-views in history. Who won? Who won? Who won? So just to put this whole thing in perspective, Dillon Danis creates this whole thing by turning himself into the most diabolical enemy of Logan Paul of all time. They go into the ring. Dillon really didn't even train that hard. He said it specifically. He said it on Twitter yesterday. He said, give me a real camp and see what happens. You're like, wait, you didn't have a real camp? I mean, we know that he didn't because he didn't have a coach, right? That's the whole thing. That's what's so hilarious to even think about at this point. Now, like as a retrospective, it's like he said on Twitter, well, give me a real camp. So he didn't have a real camp, but how would any of us have thought that he did? You know what I mean? Like, I don't even, like in hindsight, I got so tied up in all like the drama stuff that I didn't even think like, well, if he doesn't have a coach, no one does their own camp without a coach. Boxing or any other thing, really. Not for a big fight. So if he doesn't have a coach, he's not doing a camp. So he doesn't even train hard. He comes in ill-equipped to win a boxing match, per his own words, stands in front of Logan. Logan throws like 75 punches per round, and Dillon isn't even trying to punch him back, really. So he gets Logan as angry as possible. He creates himself as the ultimate villain. Logan has to defend his fiance's honor. And then he just stands in front of him and lets him go out and do that for 6 straight rounds. Logan gets to let it all out. Bap, 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 bap. And then the numbers come in, and Logan probably made more money than you could even wrap your brain around because his entire deal was all based on how well the pay-per-view sold. Him and KSI basically partnered on this thing. It's like, I think Dillon is actually Logan's best friend. I think that maybe, if Logan really went, I saw a video of Jake and they were talking about, after Logan and him did that thing, which I have no idea is real, when Logan was saying he's a better boxer and he was kind of diminishing Jake Paul's win against Nate Diaz. And then Jake said that he didn't think that he beat Mayweather. And they did that the day after they announced the Dillon and Logan fight. And I did a video where I was like, there's no way that's real. Also, remember, because Logan was saying like, they wouldn't even let me bring a bottle of Prime into the event. And I was like, you had a competing drink that was the main sponsor. If you don't understand that, that's why I decided, I'm like, this has to be fake because there's no way that Logan's that fucking stupid to not know that, But nonetheless, right? So whether it was real or not real or whatever, whether they're selling like a Paul versus Paul fight or something, doesn't seem like that's likely given that, Jake is carrying him around on his shoulders after the fight. Nonetheless, at that point, Jake got asked on his podcast, what do you think Logan needs to do? He's like, honestly, I think that he needs to go into the woods and just do ayahuasca until his ego dies. And I was like, I agree with that, actually. That would do him a lot of good, dude. I think if he did that, maybe this is what I was saying. I think if he did that and that is what I was saying, and he marinates on it, he'll go, he'll come back and they'll be like, what did you learn? What did you learn from your trip on ayahuasca? He'd be like, you're not even going to believe this, but I figured out that Dillon Danis is actually one of the closest friends I've ever had. Is he? Yes. I took all this so personally, but in reality, let's think about what we did. We created magic together. He always said it was nothing personal against me, and look at what he did. He took this little paycheck, let me beat him up, turned me into a hero for my fiance. And then I got to cash a check that was probably around 35 times bigger than his. I love that guy, man. I genuinely love that guy. I think that would probably be the outcome of that trip. So that's what it is. I mean, 1.3 million buys, dude. Think about that. Insanity. Anywho, so yeah, and then now Jake Paul fights Whoop, hang on for 1 second. This looks important. Okay, so Jake Paul is fighting in December, I'm going for sure because I had so much fun at the last Jake Paul fight. It was unreal. I personally, like I said at the Jake Paul versus Nate Diaz fight, I told you guys that like when Jake was coming in, I never boo fighters. I absolutely never boo at fights. Never. It pisses me off every single time. It literally pisses me off every single time. Like fighters, they have to do something so fucked up in the ring for me to jump on board with boos. Like they have to literally like be actually for multiple rounds clearly being avoiding fighting or something where you're like, dude, I hate it, dude. I hate it. I've definitely never booed during an entrance until Jake's because I was watching him on the screen as he's coming out and the whole place is booing and I looked at his face and he loved it. Like it was like, oh, everybody's in on this, dude. Everybody's in on this. He likes that. He doesn't hurt his feelings. He likes it. And I was like, all right, boo. This is what he wants. This is what he wants. Because I always root for people to win. That's the whole thing. Like if you really go and really look at my content, like really, actually, for real, look at my content, you'll see that if I start ripping into somebody, they have done something objectively wrong as far as I could see the world's ethics. When I was destroying Josh Fabia, that was pretty straightforward, dude. It was like, dude, this guy isolated Diego Sanchez, who's operating kind of on this different thing where he's very, very easily manipulatable. Wait, what? Easily manipulated. And this guy has trapped him, isolated him. He's like a battered wife. He's telling him to do all this. Like he is a con man. And I'm going to expose him and light him up. That's why I did that. When I was lighting up Logan, it's because he was bragging about bankrupting people, something I went through fraud, millionaire to bankrupt because of criminal behavior of a person I trusted, and so I went through the other side of that. So I just like, it was like, first of all, and I was saying like, I was trying to put pressure on Logan to drop the lawsuit because I thought it's wrong. It's fucking wrong. You know what I mean? So I generally always root for people to win. Like I never kind of look at something. I'm like, ugh, I hope this guy loses. And so I am hoping that Jake continues to win. I really like Jake too. I haven't seen anything from Jake that I don't like. I really don't. Logan would probably do really well from, a series of lots of ayahuasca, lots of ayahuasca. This thing with Nina, I mean, I'll tell you another thing too about what I was alluding to about him and Nina. So I read this comment that was in my members only. So in my members only section, I did an extended version of my video yesterday and I talked for about 15, 20 minutes about this video that this guy put out that was like a body language analysis of Nina and Logan when they were on Impulsive. And it was like talking about how he could, his read on her body language was like, she knows there is shit out there that if they really dig into her past is going to be not good, because she has presented herself very differently to Logan than what she had been previously or what she actually is, right? And so I did this whole thing on that, and a female viewer of mine wrote this comment that was literally like this big. And when I first looked at it, I was like, Jesus, I can't fucking read that. I was driving home from jiu-jitsu. I was like, God damn, that is fuck. That's the longest fucking comment I've ever seen. But then I read it because she's a member, listen, dude, that goes a long way. If you're paying money to watch additional content of mine, I'm like so flattered that I will read a fucking comment that's this big. And I'm extremely glad that I did because it was really insightful and really fucking smart. And the way that she laid it out, because I've been hammering this fucking guy because of that one thing. You know what I mean? It's like, just think about a victim of sexual assault, like someone who was actually for real, held down by a group of dudes, assaulted, like in that movie, with Mila Kunis, fucking horrifying scene. I fantasized about brutal on everyone involved in that movie. Oh my God. Like that movie, like shook me up bad. I have 3 daughters. I was like, if someone ever did that to them, I would dismember their parents in front of them. Like, anyway. But like, it's someone like that. Someone who went through things like that. Okay, well, so if they hear a story about a thing like that, right? And, you know, fill in the blank, whatever, they're going to have a very different reaction to this kind of thing than someone who is just like, I don't know, an observer who has no experience with that. And so when Logan is, I'm going to bankrupt Dillon Danis, and I went through what I went through, which was the worst experience of my life that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. And I'm like, this rich fucking idiot has no idea even what he's saying. I'm going to fucking light his shit up. And I don't regret any of it because what he's doing is wrong. But then I'm going to see him through that lens very much. And this comment really like kind of shook me up, where she actually kind of painted his relationship with Nina in a very different light, where I was like, damn. And it made me actually kind of, what's the right way to put this? Like, she was like, look at how he's treated this girl. Like, just purely look at how Logan has treated this girl. And she's like, she doesn't deserve him, you know? Or, you know, she's like, hopefully they end up happy long-term. She's not like rooting against the relationship. Neither am I. But the way that she explained it, she's like, I hadn't looked at any of the content of them getting engaged or any of that shit. But like, she talked about like what Logan had done for this girl. And then you think about how Logan acted in public with her. And I can very clearly look at them on tape and tell he's super soft with her. He's cried in front of her for sure. Like, this guy is wide open with this girl. And it made me think, I'm like, man, like, I really hope that she is the version of herself that she's showing Logan, because if she is this other thing and he is behaved this way with her, that would be so fucked up that I kind of can't even wrap my brain around it, honestly. Like, I'm laughing because it's like, you know, people are like, she's a man eater, and he's crying in front of her. He tells her everything, he said, like, and she's, you know, he said on Impulsive, I tell her everything. And I'm like, okay. And then the guy who did the body language thing was all, see, this is one of those things. He says, I tell her everything, that he is assuming that means she tells him everything. And that's an assumption that has not been verified. And then when he went on Flagrant, right? Like, he went on Flagrant and he was like, what are these pictures? Like, she's been with like 5 guys, man. You know, she's been with like 5 guys. And you're like, ooh, you know, because no, you know what I mean? No, that's not accurate, you know? And he believes her, which is what I'm saying is like, I think is why people have been, at least people with a fair amount of experience. That's why she is like, kind of, people are talking about her the way that they are. It's not because she's like slept with, you know, 15, 20, 30, 40 guys or whatever. It's because she's presented herself as something that she's not, or may have presented herself as something that she's not. And Logan is like, actually, at least just in this one thing, I'm not saying he's like fucking crypto. I'm not giving him off the hook for fucking crypto zoo, suing people, any of that shit. But at least in this one relationship, he's gone over the top, like super good dude to her. And so if she really is just like lying and misrepresenting herself, Jesus, that would be fucked up, man. You know what I mean? That would be so fucked up. Anyway, I don't even know if I did a good job explaining that. I don't even know if I'm going to leave that shit in. So it is what it is. But let's talk a little bit about, so the Jake Paul fight, December, we're going. I will always root for Jake Paul unless I don't know. He would have to, like, there would have to be some, like, everything I see of his, I like. And I love the idea of someone who was doing what he was doing when he was 18 years old, setting his mind to such an incredible goal and then actually continuing to do well. I fucking love that because there are no shortcuts. You can only train your way there. That's it. Speaking of training, I just talked my way through my fucking jiu-jitsu class. What the hell was I doing? I was supposed to leave 25 minutes ago. Now I can't go. Idiot. Fucking idiot, dude. Jesus. Well, I guess I'm going to the night class. Anyway, so, man, I'm hot as hell in this fucking, look at this. This is a rash guard my boy made. Pretty sick. So, yeah. So Dillon got fucked. Dillon got fucked in the fight. Logan might be getting hyper fucked in his relationship. Or maybe she's a new person. Maybe. You know what I mean? People can change. People can change, but man, a girl who's good at manipulating, now, fuck. I don't like bullying people. I don't like it. And I really have a hard time talking about things where I feel like I'm teetering on bullying. You know what I mean? And I feel like going hard at the relationship is very much teetering on bullying, but I can't help it. I'm just going to say this thing because I can't help myself. A girl who is good at manipulation, like a really manipulative girl, do you understand how fucking easy this is for her, for girls? Do you have any idea how easy dudes are to manipulate if they're not extremely suspicious of girls in general or people in general? Men get guys want to fuck every single hot girl on earth. And if your husband is telling you something different, he's lying to you, okay? If you see a girl that is really sexy and then she's also smart and she's also a girl, the reason, and she knows how to push buttons, she knows how to walk you this way, it's incredible how much influence and power a girl like that has. Because the guy always wants something from her. And if that's the dynamic of the relationship initially, she can walk a soft guy around on a fucking leash. And no amount of money is going to make a dude hard. You know what I mean? There's no amount of money that's going to turn the dude into the kind of person who's going to be naturally very suspicious of girls, because that kind of dude, even if he gets burned a couple of times, he still wants to believe the next one. You know what I mean? And like, it's just not even fair. It's just not even fucking fair. Because in this one category, dudes are retarded mostly. Most guys are stupid and they don't see them coming. Now, I'm sure that there's a lot of you guys that are saying, oh no, I see them coming. I didn't say all. I said most. And Logan, with girls, is soft and he wants to believe. Bottom line. And Nina looks smart to me and looks manipulative to me. You know? So I hope I'm wrong. Actually, it doesn't even matter if she's manipulative. As long as she doesn't, I can't believe I'm even saying this, but like, that comment fucking spun me up last night, dude, where I was like, damn, I'm just too empathetic in some cases where I'm like, now I fucking feel bad for this guy. If she really is getting over on him, like she's saying, like, I don't like it. I don't like it. She was saying that she thinks that the source of a lot of information that Dillon was getting was coming from girls who had been together with a guy and Nina fucked their boyfriend. That's what she said. No idea if it's true. Just she was speculating, you know. She's like older. She said she has a son who's the same age as Logan. So I don't know. I mean, whatever. Anyway, I guess I'm going to have to do a different video about the UFC 294 because I've been talking for 35 minutes, but that's what it is, dude. I love you guys, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Peace.